alaikum everyone. I hope you're doing well. This is the lecture number 3 part 2 where we will continue inshallah on what are the basic features when we obtain the milk constituents and the milk production yield from the sheep, from the goat, from the and what are specifically the production mechanisms in these animals. So let's just quickly go through them, since we are already familiar that in the numerous breeds of the sheep, they are not primarily used for the dairy production. They are used for the meat or for the production of wool. Sometimes they are also occasionally, milked, but generally the production per lactation does not exceed 100 kilos. On the other hand, some milk producing breeds can usually give 150 to 200 kgs on an average of the milk. Okay, some of the breeds here are listed. You can have a look: Lausanne, East Frisian, Avasi, Tsigia. Some of these breeds production figures produce around 500 to 650 kgs of the milk. Specifically, the ones the data indicates are from East Frisian and the Avasi Eves. So here it is important to notice that because of their milkability and the good production quantity, these breeds are classified as the dairy breeds. And it's important also to know that the data on the yield and the lactation periods are in different variable in different forms. So the figure usually which is given is 0.4 to 2.3 kg per eve per day in terms of yield, and the lactation period is around 100 to 260 days for the lactation. And this is an average. This is not specifically associated with each and every breed, so just as an average to give you an estimate of how is happening in the overall varieties of the sheep. Okay, so going ahead with the flock size and what the gestation period are, it is estimated that if we consider just for the dairy eves, 8 to 10 dairy eves are considered equal to one cow, and we usually have a flock size as big as 150 to 200 years old grouped together in very intensive family farms where all the production is taken quite seriously in a very intensive concentrated formation, while the production unit of a flock size of 300 to 400 eves are also considered appropriate as a production unit for commercial reasons. And in the flock, an eve is kept for about 4 to 5 years, and the gestation period is about 5 months, where the eve lambs are bred from the age 12 to 13 months. These are some of the basic pointers when it comes to the flock size and the gestation period of the eves. And when we discuss something about their secretion or the milking mechanism, it is quite similar to the other domestic animals which we have discussed before. We had an example of the cow, how the production mechanism works over there. The composition of the sheep milk we have already discussed before in that table, but it only varies in the terms of certain figures which we discussed that before in lecture number 1 and 2. And between the breeds, of course, other than the average, there exists some variations in terms of their certain constituents of the milk. So eves produce usually colostrum during the first few days after giving birth to their lambs, that we are already familiar with, and then the colostrum usually has a dry matter content of up to approximately 40% and contains important nutrients including protein, alpha-lactalbumin, beta-lactoglobulin, and these important constituents contribute to approximately 16% of the total proportion. And the colostral period usually lasts 3 to 4 days, where the composition gradually changes like it happens in the cows, and then it becomes more and more like an ordinary milk. So after the colostrum period is over, normal milking can be then resumed for the production, for the collection purposes on a commercial level also. And then we are also familiar that the cows usually have 4 udders like we discussed previously in lecture number 2, but here we see that sheep has an udder of two halves, each with one teat. So it has two halves where the two different qualities of the milks can be obtained, like we discussed previously. If you take a look at the figure attached here, you can understand that the features are quite similar inside. If we saw from the below portion, we see that there is a teat canal, then we got teat cistern, then where all the milk produced in the alveoli will get collected in that cistern portion, number 3. And if we take a look at number 2, it's exactly similar like it was in the cow. There are milk ducts where the milk will be produced in the alveoli, and then it would be coming down to the cistern whenever the reflex action is provided. And then number 1 are the different alveolar tissues. That's how it was. We have had a detailed video on this, specifically focused on the cow muscles, so you can have a better idea if you want to go through it on a very depth in a very detailed analysis of these structures. So similarly, when we talk about the milking mechanism, it is exactly triggered in the same way like it was previously in the previous discussed domesticated animal. Whenever we have the letdown reflexes being generated, here the letdown reflex is again triggered by the presence of the oxytocin gets released into the body, and as a result of that oxytocin hormone, the letdown reflex gets triggered whenever we give stimulation to the udders of the animal, be it in the form of the lambs, be it in the form of some other stimulations which are smell or other process which you use on a commercial level. So that's how the letdown reflex is triggered. It usually lasts up to 2 minutes. It's very short as compared to cow, and therefore the milking period is smaller. Milking interval, you can say the window for obtaining the milk is smaller as compared to the cows here in the sheeps. So this would So I hope that explains how it is carried out a bit in the sheep milk, just summarizing it so that we can conclude this lecture 3 in this video. Going ahead with another domesticated animal, just an example, goat milk, which is probably one of the first ruminant to be domesticated since they originated in Asia and now are available throughout the globe. Their data is being recorded. They are very hardy animals, and unlike the sheep, goats are not considered usually kept in the flocks, so they are not flock animals. Different breeds are available, as you can have a look, and non-dairy breeds should also be mentioned here, which includes cashmere and angora, which are usually kept for their wool reasons, and they are quite expensive. So you can have a look at the breeds, what breeds are available. Some of them are selected for their milk yield, and in a well-mannered milk production unit, a goat can produce around 400 to 900 kg milk per lactation, where the lactation period varies from 200 to 300 days on an average. And if you take a look at the compositional level, then the ratio of casein to whey proteins in the milk are around 75 to 25 as compared to 80-20 in the cow milk, where the 80 was casein and 20 was the whey proteins. So it's a bit fluctuating, it's a bit less in terms of casein and more in terms of whey in the goat milk. And the high proportion of whey might be the reasons why the goat milk is considered more sensitive to the heating mechanisms. pH of the milk usually lies from 6.5 to 6.7. It is important in terms of quality determination. You'd read about it in detail, inshallah, when we'll talk about more on the tests which are usually conducted at the production units or the collection centers. When you take a look at the milking mechanism, then the mechanism remains the same. There is a teat canal, there is cistern, milk ducts, and alveolar tissue. Exactly the same milking mechanism is adopted. However, the letdown reflex is from 1 to 4 minutes, depending upon what the stage of lactation is and what the breed is being used. So you have to milk the animal during that time period. And these are some of the basic details you need to be familiar with before you go in depth about the chemistry of milking milk, specifically what the chemistry is. Inshallah, we'll start on with lecture number 4 soon. I hope if you have any queries, feel free to write me a comment. And have a great day. Assalamu alaikum.